5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey everybody, Paul from Alexander Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving. I recently was given the opportunity from WeCreat to review and check out their new Lumos laser. And this is the first entry-level small business laser that I've been excited about in about 3 years. When I first got into laser engraving, the first laser that really hit the market that was groundbreaking was the one that I own, and it's right over here, and it was a LaserPecker 4. And LaserPecker 4 was the first desktop galvo-style laser that was a dual laser. It was a 2-watt IR laser, which can engrave metal, and a 10-watt blue laser, which can engrave softer materials like wood. I purchased that. In fact, I was investing in it because it was a backing program, and I could have lost my entire investment if the product had never come to market. But I was lucky it did come to market, and I was pretty happy with it. I didn't always love everything about it, and still to this day I don't. I have never loved LaserPecker's software. And when it comes to lasers, software is important and ease of use is important, and especially when you're talking an entry-level laser. I think WeCreat pulled off something really special here with the Lumos, and something that the industry has been crying for that everyone else seems to have forgot. While other companies seem focused on bigger units, higher prices, and flashy launches of these new machines, they seem to have forgotten the entry-level creator units that are good for small businesses. They asked one simple question: what is it that our users are looking for that they haven't been given yet? And with Lumos, they didn't just fill a gap. They actually raised the bar for these entry-level machines. So we now have the first entry-level laser that isn't just a 2-watt IR, it's a 3-watt IR. It has faster speed, the ability to engrave in color, but most important of all, more power. Meanwhile, still maintaining the things that we love about these units: their compact size, their portability, their ease of use, and best of all, their entry-level price, but still giving you a unit that you can use for years to come in your business. So stay tuned for the rest of this review and my initial thoughts of using the machine. And then I'm going to do a second review I'll be coming out with soon to show you the practical uses of this machine in a business. I am going to do a job that just came into my shop. I had an engineer from NASA who wants to get 9 Leathermen engraved for the members of his working group. And we're going to do that entire job on the Lumos here so I can show you what a fantastic machine this is. All right, so the first test I want to try is an accuracy of the focusing system. I've always heard people rave about how fantastic WeCreat's autofocus placement system is. So I took a bunch of random little circles here. Ignore the hole on that one. And I want to see if we can put a little teeny tiny X. I'm going to try and get it dead center in each one of those circles. Let me hop over here to the laptop real quick, get this all set up to go. So let's take a picture. 3mm circles with 1mm X's. So they're pretty darn tiny. And my goal is to get it as close to as I can eyeball what looks like dead center to me. I'm using the arrow key to move this. Usually on most lasers software, arrow key is your fine movement. Some you can even tell it how much you want it to move with each click. Some it can be like a 0.5 millimeter, a millimeter. If you hold down shift on this one, it gives you larger movements. It's interesting. Some it's smaller. The way it's set up right here right now, it's bigger increment. If you hold the space bar down, you get a little hand and you can kind of move around. So what I did was I made a bunch of X's and I just threw them all over this, and now I'm just moving them into place. So here's what I did. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come up here. We're going to tell it this is wood. It's basswood. It is 3mm. Material preview, good. Doesn't need to be super dark, but yeah, that should do. That one of these right there. So we'll pick that setting. That looks good. I love this. They give you a preview of exactly what it looks like. It's a little picture of tests that they've already run, so you don't have to do tons and tons of material testing. If it's stuff that they've already done, they already have the samples in here, so you can just pick it, which is really cool. I'm gonna hit start. When I hit this top button, it should start putting those little marks, engraving them into all our little circles here. All right, so here we go. And there it goes. So let's see how it did. They're all in there. Every one of them's in there. They're all inside of that circle. It's interesting. Do you notice? So I'm seeing a trend. I tried to put them all dead center, what I thought was dead center. And I'm noticing here, they seem to be just a tiny bit higher than dead center. So that might be nice to note that, like, oh, maybe one click down would have been perfect. That's pretty amazing. For autofocus and camera placement system, that is really darn good. I'm gonna say that's maybe a half of a millimeter off of where I put it. And, you know, we are talking a little teeny tiny mark inside of a 3 millimeter circle. Pretty cool. I'm impressed with that placement. That's excellent. Now I was pretty excited and I wanted to do a metal engraving. So I grabbed one of the stainless steel business cards that I use for my business, but I also use these a lot as test engravings before I do a knife engraving to see if it's a logo, if it's some art, how is it going to look after it's engraved on the knife. I have always found that stainless steel business cards work great for that. They're inexpensive and you don't have to try and find a knife to put it on. And for the purposes of this review, I did time lapse this, but I just sped it up so that you don't have to sit through the whole thing. So here is the finished results, and I was blown away. I couldn't believe how great that engraving looks. Now, all right, everybody, so it only makes sense to do a knife engraving, right? Because that's what I'm known for. That's how I got started in all this engraving stuff, was wanting to engrave knives for my sharpening service. On the screen here, we have a Henkel's knife. I keep some loaners on board, and I regularly try and pick them up if I see them at yard sales and different things. So this is a Henkel's that I'm going to be using as a loaner in the shop. A lot of times, especially if I have customers that have come a good distance and they bring all their knives, I will give them a loaner. And this is my new logo right here. So we can see I have a brand new logo, very simple, but we're going to put this on this knife. Okay, so right here, you'll see my logo. It's on the screen already. We are connected. I just have to get the picture of the knife and everything here. I've already focused the laser, but I could also hit autofocus. Now, a lot of times with knives, anything that's really reflective, sometimes autofocus, even the best autofocuses are gonna suffer a little bit when it's super reflective. So a lot of times I will manually focus them. I have already manually focused this laser, so I'm just gonna hit refresh, which should bring us a new picture up. Okay, so now you're seeing my knife that's on the screen. The next thing I can do is I want to make sure my settings for the engraving are set. We are going to use 100% power. We are going to use a line density. I'm going to go up to about, I'm going to say 200 and let's go 210. 210 should be totally fine for this. It probably could even be done a lot lower than that, but we'll go with 210. And I feel pretty good with the 10 millimeters per second. Should be a pretty nice and deep and dark engraving. So yeah, we will stick with that. I'm going to put that 10 back in there. And then, all right, so now I'm just going to hit start. Now here's where I have the option to frame it. I'm going to grab my other camera here so I can show you what the framing looks like. But I can simply if I want to click framing, so here we are over at the laser, and you can see the framing box right there. That's it by hand. And that's good. I am happy with that. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna lower this as close to as I can get it. It doesn't have to be all the way down. You can see I have the knife sticking out in some spots here. That's fine, it will work either way, it doesn't matter. The only thing you do want to be careful, if you can't get the knife or whatever you're engraving and you can't close the lid all the way down, you do want to wear some laser safety glasses. And now all I have to do is come over and hit the button on top of the laser. And you can see we are underway. Okay, my logo's all done. It just signaled me that it's finished. Let's come take a look. You always have to clean off an engraving when it's done. There's always a tiny little bit of charring. It's really easy to clean off. Typically on metal, a lot of times I will use a little bit of white Scotch-Brite polisher. I just make sure I go with the grain of whatever it is. So the grain of this knife goes up and back, so I can clean it off this way. And that looks fantastic. Wow. And the only major difference here, this is actually in the knife. Like, I can feel that, and I could have gone deeper. Okay, if I had changed that 220 lines per millimeter to even higher, if I had gone all the way to 300, this would be even deeper into the knife, and I could have gone even slower. Absolutely no need for it. You can see how fantastic that engraving looks. It's beautiful, it's black, it's in there, and it looks really great. So I pulled out my LaserPecker 4 and wanted to do just some comparisons to see how these two machines compare. And boy, I very quickly was reminded of things that I dislike about this machine. I was amazed at how long it took to transfer files over. I also have never loved this. It has two red dots for focusing. Well, when they're both together, it's kind of hard to tell. I love that Lumos used two different color dots. I think that makes so much more sense. So this is interesting. So here's the LaserPecker, and it took it 8 minutes to do this engraving. It's not in the metal at all. It's just marked. And here is the Lumos. And you can clearly see, not only is it darker, it actually engraved that metal. It was going into the metal. I can feel it. And I'm gonna even show you. Microphone down here. Here. Okay, I'm gonna put my microphone here. Hear the difference? That engraving is actually in there. It totally stops. This is grabbing into it because it's going in. This going right over, smooth. So LaserPecker 4 was launched in 2021. They started the crowdfunding and things for it. It hit the market December of 2022. So we're getting on a couple years old now, almost 4 years old. It's still retailing for $1,599. After now using the Lumos for several days, I can tell you LaserPecker 4 does not stand a chance against the Lumos. They are absolutely going to have to drop this price significantly if they hope to sell any once the word gets out about the Lumos, because it is fantastic compared to its two competitors, which in my opinion are the LaserPecker 4 and the xTool F1. So let's pull up the xTool F1, and here we see that is selling for $1,269, a little bit less. Again, technology that's approaching 4 years old, only 2 watts. Now, in my honest opinion, it's a better machine than the LaserPecker in many ways, except for its versatility. But again, we're dealing with a machine that's approaching 4 years old that a company's put zero effort into making any improvements to. Hey everybody, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to give you a final wrap up of my thoughts of why I think this is such a fantastic deal and machine right now to get in on. And then if you're interested, this video is going to go on and I'm going to talk about the color engraving, which is just another bonus with this machine that nothing else does. And you can watch that if you want to continue. But let me give you my quick rundown of just things that just jump out to me immediately about this machine. Okay, first is the autofocus. It's fantastic. And the camera placement, fantastic. The other thing that's a really nice thing that they thought of that a lot of other companies don't do is the two little focus dots in here are two different colors. One's blue, one's red. When you get them together, they make purple. So many companies do red, and when you get them together, depending on how bright it is, it can be hard to tell if they're actually together or not. I love when companies use two different color laser focusing beams. It just makes it that much easier. The material test is the best material test that I have ever used. I was able to go in and make minor changes to things like the parameters on the sides so they would burn deeper and run the test without having problems. In xTool software, I have had times where that completely messes up everything when you try and mess with these material tests. This material test was a joy to work with. It's been fantastic. And the only thing that I could find in this entire laser was on the color material test, that one little thing I told you about. That material test is designed to run all the way through itself. You don't really change anything. And I just found where the parameters are, which is your speed and power, I found it to be a little too light. They need to just increase that so it burns in deeper into metal so you can see it better. That's a minor thing that can easily be corrected in the software. Nothing to worry about there. A bigger laser area. So this area under here is way bigger than the other two, especially my LaserPecker, which has this, funky cone, which is great if you're going to do an engraving on a wall and you want to take that thing. It's very portable. Amazingly, we didn't even get into that. This unit has this whole laser. The middle piece comes out and you can put almost an identical cone that the LaserPecker has on it to do that same thing. Its base unit that it goes into and screws in and locks into, that you use most of the time unless you're doing something mobile, is better. It's bigger. It just works better all around. The price, compared to the F1, it's $130 more. For all the things this thing has going for it, including more power and doing way deeper engravings, faster, a camera, and does color engraving, $130, that's a no-brainer there. And compared to the LaserPecker 4, it's $200 less. They really need to bring that price down because trust me, they are never going to be able to compete with this laser at all. When the word gets out on this laser, nobody's going to be buying F1s or LaserPecker 4s anymore, for sure. This is a fantastic unit with incredible upgraded features compared to those other two units. So that's it for now. Stay tuned for my next video, which I already kind of told you guys about. I'm going to be doing a real laser engraving job in my shop for a customer with this laser. I think when you take all these things into consideration, all these bonus features, fantastic software, portable, hits all the marks you could ever want, and it's the newest technology out there, this is a no-brainer. It really is. And just a reminder, my next video on the Lumos will be that real job that I'm doing for a client. I'm going to do that entire job on this Lumos to show you what a great laser this could be for any small business. Have a great day, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. I also wanted to add why this is such a great opportunity now. And it's because this is an introductory offer. It's $1,000 off. But that's not going to stay that price forever. It will be going up $1,000 more very soon. You have about 11 days from the time I film this, so it will be less by the time I release it. I will put a link in the description of the video where you can get the Lumos. I think the thing I was most skeptical about with this laser, and that is they claim it can do color similar to what a MOPA laser can do. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty big claim, and I really just couldn't conceive of how they could have done that. I figured, you know what, we'll test it, and this is where I expected to maybe be let down a little bit. I thought maybe this was a bit of hype. Can it really, truly do color? Because if it could, I was going to be blown away. To do color engraving, you have to do a lot of testing, and you have to do test cards to get all your different colors. And this was one of my concerns because this is kind of a little technically involved and a little bit more advanced thing. And I was kind of curious, were they going to find a way to make this easy for first-time laser users? Because working with color and laser engraving is not an easy thing to do. So we're going to run the color calibration test, and I'm going to show you how it works. And I have to say, I did this last night, but I'm gonna walk you through it again now. I was blown away, but I wanna show you how easy this is. So I'm gonna do the steps and walk you kind of through. So what we have here is a stainless steel business card. You wouldn't wanna offer color engraving on things like if someone brought you one thing to be engraved, I would not offer to do color engraving on things like that. Color engraving is meant for known materials, no matter what kind of laser. Even if you have $10,000 100-watt MOPA laser and you want to do color engraving, you need to know the material, okay? You can't just, it's never been the kind of thing where you can just be like, oh, I want this to be blue and I want this to be red. That is not how this works. It's important to understand that. But they have made it very simple, which is really quite cool. So the first thing we have to start with a calibration test. Okay, we're back over here on the computer. We're gonna go to Toolbox and we wanna come down here to where it says Color Engrave Test. We're gonna click that and then just follow the steps. Very simple. Then we're gonna go and do our focusing of our blue and red dot. Once we've done that, you click Move Forward. This just tells you what the settings are. And then there is a guide that will kind of walk you through all these. So if you want to know exactly what the steps are doing, you can take a look at that guide. But it will basically walk you right through the entire test very quickly so that you can do this color material test. And I have to say, it's incredibly easy and well done. I could only find one thing to criticize about the entire thing, and I will show you that when it comes up. Okay, so back to our test, but if you want to know more about it, that preparation little icon up at the top, you can hit that. So the first thing it's going to do, it's going to give you the very first test, which is what you're seeing right here. And I'm going to click the send button. It will send it over to the laser, and I'm going to do these boxes first, and then the laser will engrave them. I have to hit the top button to tell it to start, and then we're going to take a look at those and we're going to pick which one has the very best color out of those selections. Okay, so these 10 boxes, the squares that you see there, I picked which one looked the best. For this one, it was the top one, and that's what I entered into the software. They have corresponding numbers, so all I have to do is come here and select which one I want. I click it. Now, what that corresponds to is a height distance, but it's a little confusing in the software because they call it something different in the software. Now, when you get back to the software, you will see a thing that says focal distance. So they refer to it as the height in the color chart, but it is actually focal distance, and that's where you're going to enter that number. So whatever you make a test chart of, that number is going to be the number you use whenever you want to get those colors on that specific material. This little clip here is from an additional test I ran. You see I'm selecting 159 because on this another test that I ran, that color looked the best. So now it's getting ready to run the second test, which will give me all the colors. I can increase the numbers of columns and rows if I want to get more sample possibilities. And that's what I did on this test. I increased the rows and columns to 7 each. Then I simply click next. It creates my test box for me. And again, I send it to the laser, position it on the workpiece, and then just let it do what it's going to do. And all these little test boxes with their corresponding speeds and numbers, and then I can use those when I want to do color engraving. Here's the one thing that I think they need to correct. The yellow that you're seeing right now where it says speed and power prints very light, in my opinion. I think they need to make it so you can control that, or they need to increase it so it prints darker. It can be very hard to read that part, but that's literally the only thing I can criticize about this color material test. It is very easy, it is very user friendly, and that is my only complaint. All right, so let's get on with doing some color engraving and see how it comes out. So we have turned on our color engraving. So right over here it says color engraving, and we have to enter a focal distance. We picked was 159, and it did write it on our test sheet here. It's a little hard to see, but it says color ID. Color ID and focal distance are the same thing. This should probably say color ID. It doesn't, it says focal distance. So we're just going to change that to 159. And now what I can do is I'm going to take these little shapes here, and I can give them a corresponding color by using the chart and speed and power setting. This nice blue color. 50 on the speed and 73 on the power. So I'm going to come over here, power 73, and our speed, I believe, was 50. Yes, our speed's already at 50. Our number of passes is 1. And our line density is 300, and all that's correct. And all that's written up here, okay? So this one is done. Now, the one thing I can do is I can come up here, and we know we want that to be blue, and I can actually change that color. If I want that to look blue, there is a color palette right here. I'll click color palette. I'm just going to put that blue because it's supposed to be blue. It's just marking it for me. It has nothing to do with the actual engraving. That is all done by the settings over here. Let's zoom in a little bit. And now we have this little in-between little medium triangle here. We have a little baby triangle, and we have this other V. So let's say this was a logo. Let's make this about we have some gold kind of yellows right here. 93 on the power and 37. Okay, and then we have this one little triangle left. What do we want to do there? Let's do this as black. Why not? Let's do a black. We got our nice blue. It looks like our blue. It's always hard to tell with the protective glass that's on the laser there. Gotta be honest, I absolutely didn't expect this to work quite this well. I didn't think the colors were gonna be this prominent, and I didn't think they were gonna look this great. It's got a little better light here, but yeah, so there we go. You can get a really good look at those colors. What really surprises me is how nice they look. They're nice, even, really well filled in. It actually looks like a little bit of paint or like sandblasted. They really look nice. And I didn't expect that. Let me see if I can find one of my other test cards from one of my other lasers, and let me show you what I thought it was kind of look like. I'll see if I can find one. Okay, so here is a color test card that I tried to run with one of my bluer lasers. And you can see I got some colors, a little bit. I did get a nice blue, but a lot of the other stuff was kind of very much the same. And what I was trying to do was this right here. I was trying to do a flag in red, white, and blue, but I couldn't really get a red color. I did get a great blue. Trying to get a red just was not there. Let me give you a side by side so you can see these up close and the difference. So here is the one chart that we just ran, and when you compare that, I mean, it's night and day. I mean, these are some really nice colors. And these are some very muted colors with really only kind of a blue that we got there. Yeah, and here's, oh, actually, here's the one we just ran. The only way I was able to get these colors was using the blue laser. And here's the other problem with using a blue laser is the heat. Do you see the warping? How terribly warped this card is? So I could get these colors. I was risking warping everything. So this wouldn't have worked very well because you can see it took so much heat to create that, it warped the card. Look at these color tests we just did. These cards are perfect. There is no warping, nothing. So that's the difference of that IR laser. It doesn't have to spend as much time, it's less heat, and that way you are not warping material, which will happen if you get too much heat. You can warp stuff. So very cool. I think this was the biggest surprise for me was these colors. I really didn't expect that to work as well as it does. Very cool.